We have been following the Diddy trial. We talked about how jury selection was happening, and this week it was all about
Okay.
Cassie. She was on the stand, and it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of very heavy stuff. They talked about, drug use, drug abuse, a lot of sexual things that were happening, hotels, like a lot of violence. It was a whole lot of
And she
things
also
happening.
started name dropping. She started name dropping.
Yeah, she did. And also the family has been present from the start, her son, her daughters. And I found
You
that
mean his
element.
son? His
Huh?
son? His children or hers?
No. Diddy's. I'm sorry if I.
No, because I was like, not them little kids in
No,
the
not the little kids. Although she is very much very pregnant. Her husband has been there every day that she has been on the stand. But I meant to say Diddy's family has been present throughout this entire trial. And I found it kind of like his daughters are very young. And for them to be in court while they're talking about all of this heavy things, I think that has to be a bit traumatic. Regardless of if you believe your dad did it or not, listening to those things in connection to your father has to be something that is very heavy, very heavy. But maybe there is like a game plan to that, to show the jury like his family stands with him, whatever. We're not going to go into detail of all the things because it just has been so much that like we just can't break in everything that they talked about. But what I do want to mention is how a lot of people have been so quick to just be like, why didn't she leave? They've been together. Well, they were together for over 10 years. I believe it was like 11 years. And the violence, the drug abuse, the quote unquote freak offs were happening, I feel like after a year into the relationship. And on social media, a lot of the talk is not like, of course, there's like two extremes. There are the ones that are, understand Cassie and feel bad for her. But there are those, as always, the people that are like, well, why didn't you leave? And on the stand, she does mention like, A, I was in love with him. B, the times that I did try to leave, he was abusive or wouldn't let me leave the hotel or wherever they were at. And I am just like, why is it that so often people just automatically turn against the woman? Like it's rare that people are like, oh, as a male, you shouldn't do that. And I think sometimes it is because people were raised in such like abusive households that they don't realize that someone pushing you or someone screaming at you or doing like specific things that is not okay. So then you grow up older and you're just like, well, that happens to every relationship. No, that does not happen in every relationship. And again, there's also the people that are like, oh, well, they could have just been in a relationship where they like to try different things when it comes to sex. There are very different, like just because you're a very like sexual person and you like to try things, once you put drugs and violence into things can get very messy. And I think like domestic violence isn't a joke. And a lot of times, a lot of people are like, oh, just leave. But it's like, it's not that easy to just leave.
Exactly. So you said a lot of great points. But the one thing that I want to touch on, and that is to your point about like domestic violence isn't just very cut and dry. It's not black
Mhm.
and white. There's gray areas to every single thing, right? So to your point about like how come when it comes to women, they don't want to believe women, but they're so quick to sit there and say like, actually, this man is the victim, or in this case, or whatever like that. I want
Mhm.
to preface this by saying domestic violence can happen from both ends. It can
Yeah.
happen from men and it can happen from women. I'm
Mhm.
not stating that only women are whatever and stuff like that. We do see a higher percentage of women because those are the ones that are most reported on, right? So
Mhm.
that is an important thing to know. So with Cassie being like on the stand, being questioned and stuff like that, one of the things that I have been commonly seeing is people saying that question like, why didn't she just leave? when you are in those type of predicaments, and now I can't say I've ever been in those type of predicaments. I have seen other people, and I know other people who have been in those abusive type of relationships. And it's like, to you outside looking in, not dealing with that person on a day-to-day basis, it's easy for you to be like, why couldn't you just leave? Like, why are you still there? Hit him back, do this, do that. It's very easy to say from the outside looking in, but until you are in that predicament, and I think I fault myself because sometimes I have said that to certain friends where I'm like, how dare you even sit there and let that happen to you? But it's like, also, you're not in that situation. I am not in there mentally, I'm not there emotionally, and I'm not there physically or financially. I am not in that predicament to sit there and be able to understand what you are going through. So, like I said, from the outside looking in, it is very easy to be like, you can leave, you need to leave, but you're not in that.
And also, there's just very different levels of abuse, right? Like, aside from like the Diddy trial, right? I have seen people that it can start off something as so simple of like, oh well, he just pushed me because he was mad, and you brush that off. But guess what? The second, third time, the pushes get stronger. And when that second or third push comes, you've already been in a relationship for 3, 4 years. And guess what? Like, the longer you're with somebody, you feel more comfortable. And so you look past those violent moments, right? Because you're like, well, I love him and we've been together for 4 years. And just because it's like the majority of time that we're together, it's all love. So I'm going to look past the 3, 4 years.
Right,
Or I'm
right.
going to look past the one time that he pushed me or he did this. I just think we just need to take time and breathe and stop automatically judging or picking a side. Because also, aside from like just this specific trial, this is exactly the reason why people don't want to speak up, right? Because they're like, well, if I say something, people are going to think that I'm lying. And it's you're wrong regardless of how you do it, or people have something to say regardless, right? Because let's say, as we're going to talk about DDG and Hallie in a bit, but like, if you are real quick to press charges or bring up the case to law enforcement, it's a problem. But there's also women that wait, as is this case, years later to bring up what happens, and people are like, oh well, why did you wait so long? It
Correct.
doesn't matter if you do it quick, early, people are automatically judging you. And it's like, domestic violence is super, super common. And I think, again, I feel like I sound like a broken record, but because a lot of us have been raised in very toxic households, you think that things are okay that aren't, right? Like, you're raised in households where your parents are always screaming and pushing and this, and that is not normal. Like, in your head, you might think that it is. So when you see it happening in other, in other relationships, or when you grow up and you do it, you think, oh, well, that's normal because I was raised like that. No, that is not normal.
It's not an excuse either. And to your point, I think a lot of times in Black communities, minority communities, we enable dysfunction. We
Mhm.
enable all the toxic behaviors. We enable the constant disrespect, violence, and everything like that because that is what you are raised in. And that does not mean that it's okay. It does not mean that I sit here and when somebody else is complaining that this happens, and like I've caught myself doing that sometimes where people are like, oh, well, like my parents do that. And I'm like, well, in my household, they did this, so it's okay. And it's like, you got to be able to clock yourself and
Mhm.
understand that within these minority and Black communities, we can't keep allowing and accepting the dysfunction to be the point of our judgment. If you didn't like it growing up, how can you sit here and be like, it's completely okay if it's happening to somebody else? No, that doesn't make it okay. It actually is a problem.
Yeah, and it's like an endless cycle, right? Because
Right.
I clock myself, like there's certain things where I was raised where I was like, oh, I would never do that, right? Or when I raise my kids, I want to make sure that I don't do XYZ. But it's like,
Right.
sometimes it's just a creature of habit. You're used to it, so you think it's normal. But no, we need to clock ourselves, and we do need to speak up when you see these types of things happening because they are not okay.
Right, right. And I've been in those predicaments where I've had friends who like the I'm talking about male and female in this case,
Mhm.
basically the boyfriend basically like yelled in the girl's face. And I stepped in and was like, hey, like, don't talk to her like that. And basically was told to mind my business from both parties. And it's just like, in those type of instances, could I continue? But at the same time, you can't get help or you can't want change until you want it for yourself. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, at times you got to sit back and watch. But when that person does speak up, why do you feel like you shouldn't listen?
And I think also as a society, like that's why I sometimes get a little bit triggered when we are on social media and spaces or accounts like the Shade Room amplify toxic relationships, especially in our community, like Caribbean, Latino, Black, minorities, as like, oh, it's fun and joke. Like people in the comments, like Krishan Rock, what's her name? Krishan Rock.
And Blueface.
Yeah, and just several other relationships that are like big when it comes to like culture wise. We need to stop amplifying those things because the slashing tires, the breaking windows, all of that is not okay. I don't care how much you love somebody, and I know love can make you do crazy things, but that is not okay. If it is not working, let it go. I don't care if you have to cry for a month in your house in order to be able to end it, but you need to end it because it will escalate and it's going to end very, very badly.
And I want to, before we move on to our next topic, I want to touch on that because for me, all those behaviors that you mentioned, that was a learning experience for me. I learned very quickly, like, doing all that. Like, people think that when you get jealous or you act out or like I start stalking you, threaten to pop your tires or actually do it, that type of stuff means like that passion, that anger means that you love me. If I have to sit there and get out of myself, out of my composure, to sit there and act out on you, is that really love? Or am I looking at a different way of trying to control you based on a different emotion? Because love isn't the way that's doing it.
Yeah, that's definitely not love. And our society might, show us or wants to push that down our throat, but true love should never make you get to that point.
Yeah. And also, that's why I also always say, and Shayla and I have talked about this, we don't have the personalities that look at all these different relationships and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so engrossed in it, like this, that, and the third.
Mm-mm.
I will sit there and be like, oh, they're cute together. I like seeing them together. But if they break up, it does absolutely nothing for me because I don't like to put weight in people's relationships because you don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of celebrity relationships we have seen where we're like, oh, this person look like they look so cute together. And then you come to find out, you find out all this different stuff. It's like, and also I just want to mention really quickly with Diddy, right? I see a lot of people talking about some like ever since the trial started happening and people they're like, I saw Boosie posted that this should be a domestic violence case because she liked the sex that was happening, this, that, and the third. I don't think people understand that when you are in that type of like mind frame or state of mind or in that predicament, that you will find, and this is terrible to say, you will find light where you can. Right. So it's like if you are consistently being tossed, and I'm talking about in terms of Cassie and Diddy, if you are consistently tossed in these freak offs, in the drug abuse, the this, the that, and everything like that, you're going to have to find a happy place where you can. Right. You're going to have to find those little moments of enjoyment just so you can find a way to survive in those moments. Right. And a lot of people are like, but Diddy has done all this stuff, good things, bad things, over the years. Two things can be true. Just because to us, he was shown as this mogul, this, that, and everything like that under the sun for years, that does not discount the fact that he is an alleged predator. That doesn't discount anything. Two things can be true at the same time. I could be the nicest person that you've ever met in life, but in someone else's story, I'm a villain. That does not make that statement less true or more true. Everybody gets a different version of everyone.
Yeah. And also, I feel like when you insert drug into anything, right? Because aside from for the freak offs, it was like said during the trial that she was very heavy on drugs, right? She was suffered from drug abuse. So when you insert that in, things that you do while you're under the influence are just not
amplified.
Yeah.